Architecture, construction, engineering are the sole backbones in our modern society. They are the foundation of our world's buildings. You are now tuning into a podcast brought to you by Robert Knott, Zoe Alvarez, and Elizabeth Cordero, where we dive into the fundamentals of construction in our modern world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this final episode of our official Architecture Technology podcast. You are now tuning into our final episode where you learn the fundamentals of construction. Hey, everybody, and thank y'all for tuning into this podcast. I really just wanted to say thank y'all for joining in. I finally found the camera this time. So, anyways, I just wanted to personally get started on this chapter. Huh? Where? Who said that? The audience? Is that you? Is that you guys? Dang, what's going on around here? What the? Hold on, whose tiny glue is this? This tiny glue ain't mine. It's probably just garbage, anyways. Just kidding, everybody. Anyways, I just wanted to say again, thank you all so much for finally tuning into this podcast. This is going to be our final episode, actually, for this podcast in particular. And again, I just also wanted to say thank you all for coming on this journey and really getting to kind of see like all of our goofiness as we were learning the whole time. And also, I just wanted to personally say thank you again to Lenny Delgado, my professor for this course. And also wanted to say thank you to Zoe and Elizabeth for also joining and getting into my adventure on this podcast the entire time. This is going to be our final episode, so thank you all for tuning in. We will see you soon.
And indeed, we are starting today's podcast. So, to introduce this segment, we're going to be covering the first part of this chapter known as the installation of mechanical and electrical services. Now, you may be wondering, so what are mechanical and electrical services? So, mechanical and electrical services encompass the design, installation, and maintenance of systems that power, condition, and support a building or facility. This usually includes HVAC, plumbing, electrical wiring, lighting, and fire protection. And this usually starts once a building's roof and major walls are usually in place. So whenever the exterior work is complete, the interior work can begin. So this is including the installation of the mechanical and electrical systems in a home. So to kind of get like little bit of a basic overview. So usually electrical systems in a home sometimes can kind of refer to as like your lighting system, sometimes your wiring, a lot of your grids. But before we kind of go a little bit more further into that, I wanted to first start out with plumbing installation. So usually when it comes to the installation of plumbing, a lot of people usually assume that it always constitutes the toilets. However, plumbing in houses often range to a category. These can include pipes for water supplies, fixtures such as sinks, faucets, showers, bathtubs, toilets. These are usually connected to a utility network that is responsible for flow around the house. Which, speaking of which, the first system to be installed in plumbing is usually waste lines, as they usually rely on gravity and have minimal routing flexibility. Following this, portable water supplies and piping and sprinkler fire suppression systems are added if required in a building. So, following along with this installation is drainage systems and finally ventilation, which is important for preventing sewer gas buildup in houses. This is important so that you don't have a bad smell in your house, especially if you're growing toiletries. And now, in this next chapter, we're going to be covering HVAC systems. So, another important factor is HVAC. This is usually an abbreviation for heating, ventilation, and air cooling. It's a home comfort system that heats and cools your home, air heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. This is what a HVAC means. HVAC components are installed next, including furnaces, boilers, chillers, cooling towers, pumps, fans, pipings, and ductwork. Or another segment I wanted to cover too is electrical and communication wiring. So, whenever HVAC is always in place, electrical communication and control wiring are installed. Elevators and escalators are placed in designed structural openings. Vertical service shafts, for example, so multi-story buildings route vertical runs of pipes, ducts, wires, and elevators through dedicated vertical shafts, pre-planned during design. These shafts are enclosed in fire-resistant walls before project completion to prevent fire spread. So a lot of these are systems are extremely important. If you do take a look, I have some video footage that I had gotten of a recent field trip I had went out with my Design 2 studio. You can see in the house's interior framework of all those systems in play that make up the full extent of the house. If you think about it, it acts a lot like the foundation, which is the bones and it acts a lot like the foundation is the bones, and the HVAC system is your body's flow response. However, and this is architecture, construction, and engineering, not anatomy. How the heck are we going to learn about anatomy? Oh, brother. I don't mean it like that. Hey, Rob, we know you're all working hard, but maybe sleep at home, not in the Z building. Oh, brother, you can't believe the nerve of this guy. Anyways, yeah, don't be like that guy. So, in our next segment, we're going to be talking about the distribution of mechanical and electrical systems. In our previous segment, we had talked a lot about systems featuring residential homes. However, these kinds of systems also do apply a lot in our commercial buildings. In many mid rise and high rise buildings, conditioned air is distributed from rooftop units, usually by vertical shafts, and then horizontally through ducts above a suspended ceiling. Many buildings, especially skyscrapers, often have the structural separation joints to accommodate settlement and thermal movement in the structure. One example, for example, is this building out in the United Arab Emirates, known as the Burj Khalifa. It has a system known as the extreme heat mitigation. Out there, the desert heat from the sun and the reflective UV that comes from the sand usually hit the building. So the exterior actually protects the front and maintains the flow of air, which usually allows the cooling system within the building to cool residents and visitors from feeling excessive heat in the building. Because we all gotta admit, no one wants heat. Another thing I also wanted to bring up as well is the horizontal service routing. Usually, pipes, ducts, and wires are typically routed beneath the floor slab or above the ceiling of the floor below, concealed within suspended ceilings or cellular raceways. In some cases, raised access flooring provides spaces for wirings and HVAC services, in which a lot of large buildings, mechanical rooms are often reserved for electrical distribution, fan rooms, and other systems. I actually have a picture here I wanted to show real quick. This was actually taken from this dome that we had visited over in El Paso, somewhere over in downtown where actually funny story, this is actually owned by one of my professor's fathers, and we got a chance to actually get to see the inside of the building, and this is one of the mechanical rooms that we got to see. Also noted, this can be equipment such as pumps, boilers, and transformers that may be housed in basements or sub-basements. Rooftop penthouses accommodate elevator machinery, cooling towers, and ventilation fans, especially in skyscrapers. Even some entire floors may be even dedicated to mechanical systems, allowing zoning of HVAC and utility services due to their massive size and square footage. Now that we have covered the rundown of mechanical and electrical services, how about we tune in to Zoe's segment of interior finishing operations?
Okay, so next I'm talking about the sequence of interior finishing operations. The first items to be installed are usually hanger wires for full height suspended ceilings and full height partitions and enclosures, especially those around mechanicals and electrical shafts. After the major horizontal air ducts and electrical conducts have been installed, the grid for the suspending ceiling is attached to the hanger wires so that the lights and ventilating louvers can be mounted. Then the ceilings are finished. Electrical and the communications wiring is brought down from above the ceiling to serve as outlets and partitions. Then the walls are finished and painted. The last finishing operation in the installation of the floor material the last finishing operation is installation of the floor material, which is delayed as long as possible to prevent the floor from being damaged during the work of other trades.
Now let's get into this next part of the segment of the video. So this segment of the video I was going to be covering was interior finishes. So whatever you think about it, whenever you walk into a room, often what's usually the first thing that you noticed? The color of the walls, the texture of the flooring, the gleam of the countertops. These elements don't really just come together by accident. They're all carefully chosen to shape how a space looks, feels, and even functions. So let's start with the basics on exactly what we often mean by interior finishes. Well, essentially, these are the final touches that bring a design to life. We're talking about everything from paint and wallpaper to flooring, ceilings, and millwork. These elements don't just and affect aesthetics, but they influence the experience of a space, impacting mood, durability, and even acoustics. We will break down these elements into different categories. These usually include wall finishes, flooring, ceiling treatments, countertops and surfaces, fixtures and hardware, sustainability, and smart materials. So to start off, first off, walls. So walls are like the canvas of a space. You can go bold with statement colors, keep it neutral for a calming effect, or add textures with materials like bricks, stone, or wood painting. Paint is a classic choice, but don't forget about wallpaper. Yes, it's making a comeback. Let's not overlook plaster and veneer finishes, which add depth and handcrafted touch to interiors. So, for flooring, moving down to flooring is one of the biggest decisions in any interior projects. There's a reason why so much thought usually goes into this. Floors endure daily wear and tear. Usually, when you walk across the floors, durability is key. You got hardwood that's worn, timeless look, tile for moisture-prone areas like kitchens and bathrooms, and polished concrete for a sleek, modern vibe. And if you want a cozy, sound-absorbing option, carpeting for area rugs might be your best bet. Now, for ceilings, often overlooked but super important, a ceiling finish can completely change the perception of height and openness in a room. A covered ceiling adds elegance, exposed beams being a rustic feel, and suspended ceilings can help with acoustics and lighting. Ever considered a high gloss ceiling? It reflects light beautifully, making spaces feel a lot more larger and a lot more dynamic. So let's talk about countertops. Whether in the kitchen, bathroom, or even or so now that we're covering countertops, whether it's in the kitchen, bathroom, or even office spaces, countertops are a focal point. Natural stone like granite and marble is luxurious but requires maintenance. Quartz is usually also another aesthetic that's applied a lot to countertops. It's durable and non-porous. And there's even wood, stainless steel for more specific aesthetic choices. The material you pick often affects not just the look but also the functionality and the upkeep. And for fixtures and hardware, this is where details kind of make a big impact on fixtures and hardware. Whenever we think about cabinet handles, doorknobs, or light switches, these are like the accessories of interior design. Matte black and brass finishes are trending right now, but classic polished chrome never really goes out of style. And don't forget about the lighting fixtures. Pendant lights, scones, and recessed lighting all play a huge role when setting the mood of a space. And finally, we're going to be talking about sustainability and smart materials. Now, more and more designers often usually look for eco-friendly materials, recycled glass countertops, bamboo flooring, low-vac plants that are usually not just good for the environment, but also for the air quality and overall well-being. Plus, a lot of your smart materials in a lot of homes, for example, are changing the game self-cleaning surfaces, thermochromic glass that adjusts to light, and even walls that can purify the air. Interior Finishes is here, and it's high-tech. So now that we've covered a lot about it today, if there's one thing we wanted to also take away from this chapter, interior finishes aren't always about the looks, but they also shape in how they interact with the space, how it holds up over time, and even how it makes us feel. Now that we covered this segment, let's tune into Zoe's segment on indoor environmental quality. I will see you all soon.
Next is indoor environmental quality. Since interior finished materials reside within the same environment as the building's occupants, unhealthful ingredients in these materials have the potential to adversely affect users of the buildings. A host of solvents from paints, varnishes, flooring adhesives, and other materials are capable of a range of health impacts. Can penetrate the air of the building, especially when new. Some long recognized health hazards have been eliminated from construction materials by the state or federal health regulations and only remain a concern when encountered in older buildings. Examples can include lead-containing paint, asbestos fibers in plaster, flooring, or fireproofing materials, and arsenic-containing wood preservatives. Indoor air quality concerns due to material emissions have led to increased attention to selecting materials that are as free as possible from potential negative health impacts. Additionally, sustainability programs set low limits on the volatile organic compound content of interior coatings, adhesives, and sealants. By limiting the VOC content of such materials, the health of the materials installers and future building occupants are better protected. These programs also require other forms of emission testing for the full range of materials that can impact interior air quality. The most commonly referenced test for this purpose is the California Department of Public Health Standard Method. In order for a material or product to pass, the presence of unhealthful compounds must not exceed prescribed limits. Next is allowing for movement. Interior finish systems must also accommodate movements between themselves and the surrounding building components, as well as the expansion and contraction within the finishes themselves. Interior expansion joint covers must be used to conceal a building separation joint while maintaining a finish's appearance and accommodating the movements that occur between the separate structural parts. Where no bearing partitions meet the underside of structural slabs above, the connection must allow for deflections in the slab without imparting loads into the partition for which it is not designed. Interior finished materials also often require surface divider joints of various kinds to conceal or limit cracking within the materials themselves due to drying, chemical curing, or changes in temperature. These joints are mostly important in rigid or brittle finished materials and when finishes extend over large areas. Interior finish materials join the mechanical and electrical services of a building at the points of delivery of the services: electrical outlets, lighting fixtures, ventilating diffusers, and grills, the connectors in the lavatories, and water closets. Leading up to these points, the services may or may not be concealed by the finished materials. If the service lines are too concealed, the finished systems must provide space for them, as well as for maintenance access points in the forms of doors, panels, hatches, cover plates, and ceiling or floor components that can be lifted out to expose the lines. If the service lines are too left exposed, the architect should organize them visually and specify sufficiently high standard of workmanship in their installation so that their appearance will be satisfactory. Next is changeability. Appropriate finishes include many of the heavier, more expensive, more luxurious materials that are considered desirable by many building owners. In a rental office building or retail shopping mall, change will be frequent, and lighting partitions should be easily and economically adjustable to the new use of patterns without long delays or unnecessary disruption. The likelihood or frequent change may lead the designer to select either inexpensive, easily removed construction or relatively expensive but durable and reusable construction. The functional and financial choices must be weighed for each building. Long-term trends in interior finish systems. Interior finish systems have significantly evolved over the past 75 years, and in the past, commercial office finishes started with heavy clay tiles or gypsum blocks set in mortar, covered by multiple coats of plaster and connected to a plaster ceiling. The floor was usually hardwood strips or poor terrazzo with a matching base, and as of today, offices are framed with light metal studs and use gypsum board for walls, lightweight acoustically absorbent tiles for ceilings, and thinner flooring options like carpet or resilient tile adhered to a smooth concrete slab. Several trends can be observed in the evolution of interior finishes. One key trend is a shift from an integral system of finishes to one composed of discrete components. In older offices, walls, ceilings, and floors were interconnected, making changes to one difficult without affecting the others. In contrast, modern offices through feature ceilings and floors that extend seamlessly across the space, allowing for easy modification of partitions without disrupting the ceiling or floor. This trend is exemplified by the use of modular, demountable, and relocatable panel systems for partitions. Another trend is a transition from heavy finished materials to lighter ones, such as metal studs and gypsum boards instead of clay tiles and plaster. Resilient tile installations are also much lighter than the traditional terrazzo. This shift helps reduce the dead load that the building structure must carry. This shift to lighter finished materials not only makes the structure itself lighter and more cost-effective, but also lowers shipping, handling, and installation costs. These materials are easier to remove when changes are needed. Wet systems of interior finishes, which use materials mixed with water on site, have largely been replaced by dry systems. Gypsum board and ceiling tiles have taken the place of plaster, while resilient materials or carpet have replaced tile and terrazzo floors. Dry systems are quicker to install, less affected by weather, and require less skill from installers since much of the work is done by machines in factories. These factors also contribute to lower installed costs. Traditional finishes are not obsolete. They remain long-lasting and are often found in the renovation or restoration of older buildings. Additionally, there are still occasions when traditional finished materials, known for their unique aesthetic qualities and durability, are used in new construction projects.
All right, everybody. Well, this is officially our final goodbyes. Say thank you all for tuning into this podcast. I just wanted to personally thank you all again for staying here and listening to us talk about this chapter. And overall, it's really been a good journey having you all here. Thank you all for tuning in. We will see you all soon. Now, before we do end this off, though, how about we finalize our final goodbyes with some bloopers? Time to see how we goofed off when we were working on all these podcasts throughout the semester.
And performance.
Oh, actually, I kind of got lost in where we were. Sorry.
You didn't include that in the bloopers.
Residential entrances doors, for example, swing inward and are mounted to the interior side. F the door. I don't know what that is. The door prime. Don't worry about that. This man.
What happened?
I just saw part that says F the door prime. I don't know what happened. That's fucking lost. That's another buffer for another.
Is your substrate ready to receive the coating?
Sorry.
No,
Can we retake that? I'm sorry. I can't watch it.
it's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
Collect yourselves, guys. Aye,
Autofocus.
aye. Me with my running down mascara. I need a waterproof brush. It's fucking hilarious. I'm like, yeah, you guys can use my notes. Notes are wrong.
Oh no!
Coating, no, that's not right. Coating Morella's? Hold on. Time out. Coating Morella's.
Oh my god, you just because you were about to.
I swear my laugh is contagious. I
I was like,
No, I see somebody laughing and I start laughing too.
I know that feeling.